Should be there. Welcome back to Boss Uncaged podcast. So off air, we were talking about on this particular episode, if you're a person that may get heart attacks, if you may happen to have strokes, you may want to kind of, like watch this at a slower pace because this is going to be a fast moving, heart racing episode that we may say some crazy things. And I can already tell you that we're going to feed off each other. So be warned. You've been warned. Okay. I'm going to name this individual the party boss for obvious damn reason. So like, I want to start this off right with Marley. I want you to kind of go into your book and I want you to start us off, like you said in your first chapter in introductions, like, what are you not? Let's start there.
Oh, I can assure you, I am not a lot of things. And one of them is, well, as I say, depending on the day, I have a very, very long list, but I have to just tell you that was the greatest intro ever. Because at first I was like, oh my gosh, like, is he doing like a little commercial or whatever? And then I realized, oh, he's talking about us with good reason. So yes, you've been warned, like the blurry video warnings when you get, when they say may cause seizures. So, okay, so the bottom line is that I have a celebrity event planning company called The Party Goddess. But the book you're talking about is called But Are You Making Any Money? Which is after a question my dad would always ask me very frequently because he would get tired of bailing me out. And it would be, hey, listen, this business of yours sounds so great. And I was like a million other entrepreneurs, a lot of other creative people out there. Hey, it all looks great. And these days, and this was before Instagram and all TikTok and all that, it's like, it really looks great. But are you making any money? Because it's kind of like the equivalent of the filters and like posing in Ibiza and whatever, but like really how much cash do you have in the bank? So what I realized was I loved event planning. That's why I got into it. I'd been an event planner. I started out in the restaurant business 30 years ago and moved into event planning. But I had the same problem that a lot of other creative people, and I have found especially women have, which is even though I went to Georgetown and got my business degree, I could not understand my numbers and apply the lessons that I had learned about profit and loss statements and all that in business school into my own company. So what happened was I was chasing my sales and I was so like, oh, I'm going to do $1 million my first year in business, which I did great at 22. But, you have to have a check, like be careful with your goals because it's, yes, I'm going to do $1 million in sales, but you can't then spend 1.1, right? Like these days, it's a little bit like the tech thing, like, oh, they have a $9 billion valuation. Yes, except they've never been profitable. So it's sort of like, you have to, you can't just look at the outside and say, oh, that looks great. You got to dig a little deeper. So with me, you can dig as deep as you want because I promise you all of my skeletons are out there somewhere.
Great. So, I think you brought up a hell of a segue, right? Also in that book, you gave a dedication to both your parents and you were saying that you got your creativity from your mom and you got your mouth from your dad, hence why he's the one bailing you out. So I want you to kind of talk about how have you, obviously you brought both these hemispheres together to be who you are and to be successful, but I want you to talk about that journey of like growing up in that environment a little bit.
Well, if somebody's listening on audio, they're not going to see me roll my eyes as much as they would really appreciate, but the thing is I grew up in Pasadena, California, which is it might as well be like Connecticut, right? It is about as conservative, not necessarily politically, but it is just a traditional deal. My dad is a physician and worked, and my mom stayed home and had, I have a younger brother. And it was literally like, if we were sick or needed to be picked up at school, my mom was picking us up. If we had, brownies that needed to be baked for the class, they were baked from scratch. That was just, you had pride in like maintaining your house. And you had, my mom was like a very proud housewife. That was her deal. And ironically, when you talk about like, take you back to that, I would love both of my parents and very close to them, but I always really, really, really identified so much with my dad and to the point that it was almost like odd to be a little girl and really so interested in your dad going off to work and my dad's friends. And we had an adjacent, whatever, it's like a studio, I guess, that was attached to our house. And in it, we had a whole like billiards room and the whole thing. And so every once in a while, my dad would host card games. And I can remember probably one of my earliest memories. I couldn't have been 3 or 4. And these guys would all be out there playing poker and gambling and the whole thing. And I just loved it. Like, I mean, talk about like being attached to vices early. And I just loved the energy. I loved the fact that there was no baloney about what they talked about, or maybe it was all baloney, but it was all just like, it was concentration and numbers and fast paced. And it just really resonated with me. And my dad would always kind of talk to me about being an entrepreneur and whether he knew it or not. And so I had my first business when I was 4 years old. And I really say it was my first business because I sold shrinky dinks door to door. And those are those little plastic things you put in the oven and probably are like developing cancerous cells, you know, when you then have your toast afterwards. But I sold them door to door because in those days you could go door to door, right? Like, so I had made up my little shrinky dinks, take them out of the oven, they're still warm, put in my pocket. And I would go around the neighborhood and, you know, knock on the door. And I'm sure these neighbors were like, oh my God, like, we feel so sorry for this little Majcher girl who needs change to live. But I just remember having the coins in my hand and I can see them and being like, and one of the shrinky dinks was 15 cents. And just remember being like, I was high, like, this is the greatest thing ever. But I also remember my mom very much telling me how I was going to get married and have children. And, you know, you didn't have a career like the boys did. And it was just the anxiety that gave me so early on, because I felt like I had this dirty little secret of like, I can't tell her, like, I really just want to be in business. And all of that really very much shaped my whole life because I had these two pulling things, this creativity and this like love for gardening and being at home and having this great house. But then I also just kind of wanted to be like a corporate raider, you know, and just like crush it. So it's very strange having kind of a split personality. And I feel like I have that very left brain and very right brain part of my life.
And I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm that way as well, too. I mean, imagine I got my graphic design degree and I still felt like a weirdo amongst weirdos. So I definitely understand where you're coming from, which kind of leads me to like my next question, right? Like what you're describing is nature versus nurture. But in the case of what you're talking about is more so like passion and dedication versus strategy. So I want you to kind of talk about how did you like you bringing both these worlds together equally, right? Like we haven't even talked about your clientele list yet.
Right.
Getting to that point, how have you been able to merge both hemispheres?
Well, I think, again, I want to say for people on the outside, it looks like I have merged them much more fluidly than I have. Okay. So just full disclaimer out there, being in business, having any kind of business, starting a business, growing a business, selling a business, it's a very messy process, right? There is no, that I've ever found, easy way. There really are no shortcuts, right? So, and then I think a lot of it is hindsight. So I didn't set out to merge things. What I did was I set out to like satisfy my brain and my anxiety, right? Because I loved being creative, but then I knew if I was just only creative, I would get really antsy and kind of mess up the business and then need to go back to my numbers, right? So then I'd be two numbers spreadsheet focused. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get my hands dirty. I need to like play with my flower arrangements and get creative. And so I think I kind of got like the little like teeter totter, right? Where you just start going and then you feel yourself out of balance and you pay attention and you sort of course correct. The one thing that both of my parents were amazing about, probably my mom most, was that she was like, try everything. Like, we would always have to go to summer school when we were kids. So it was like, but she would let us take everything. We had to take like half like school kind of education classes, but then the other half could be whatever we wanted. So she was like, if you want to take photography, take photography. If you want to take pottery, take pottery. If you want to take, and she wasn't particularly interested in photography, which is kind of interesting. And I really wanted to take it when I was little. And she's like, that's fine, then go take it. And my dad very much encouraged that because his thing was like, which helped me so much in business because it was like, you aren't going to know until you get your feet wet. Right. And you have to really just try things and then like get out if you don't like it. And I think sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves, like, I am going to be this, study this in high school, and then I'm going to be this major in college, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to work for, in banking, or I'm going to go, and you kind of miss some of the cues. That's like, dude, I know I've had this idea for a long time, but I don't like it. And that, I think, really has helped me, is just to keep kind of paying attention and fine tuning and not take myself too seriously. Like, I'm really good at this, I'm not really good at this component, and then figure out, do I want to stay in this industry? Yes, but I need somebody who's going to balance this out, because I have a loud mouth that offends people. So I need a buffer if I ever want to keep an employee, those kind of things. So I think it's such a process of trial and error. And the reason maybe it has fused, at least on the outside, how that it looks a little bit better, is because just the sheer number of times I have failed is could fill, land fills. And I just keep getting up. I'm like somebody in like a horror movie. I'm just like, but I'm back. I'm undaunted. I don't care.
I think what's really cool about you is that you're very transparent, right? Like you're not trying to be perfect. You say, I'm far from perfect. I think you even did like a video, I think it was Instagram or a TikTok video, where you had the pancake fail, which was an epic fail.
Oh.
It was hilarious at the same time, right? And considering, kind of going back a little bit, like you married a chef. So it was kind of like how did that happen? So like, let's talk about that for a minute. Like, obviously you're overcoming failure on a regular basis. How does that keep fueling you to keep moving forward?
Well, it fuels me, I think, because I think early on, I had public failures, right? That were like literally, because remember, when you have a big mouth and you think you're the bee's knees at 21 years old. I graduated from college at 21. I got married at 22 to this chef, who's this fabulous New York chef, who's 20 years older than I am. And I say, I'm going to do $1 million, and I do it. And I'm on the front page of the newspaper, all these, business things, and it all looks really great. But let's face it, when you're that cocky and you have a master of the universe complex, which I did, then things start to go south. And I realized, holy cow, I have a partner in this, and I'm trying to do the cost of goods sold, and he's being the creative guy, and how do I wrangle this? And then you realize you're starting to make mistakes, and these mistakes are affecting a lot of other people. And then it's like, wait a second, now, finances aren't great for your marriage. So, or financial trouble, and so I was like, oh shoot. So this is kind of going south. Like, we can't get our arms around this. We're fighting a lot, and we work together and we live together. So like, what's the best thing I can think to fix this? And I was like, okay, God, I'm just going to have a baby, and that's going to magic. That's going to bring all the romance back and all the whatever. Well, obviously that just freaking tanks the damn shit. And so now I have a baby. It's just a hot mess. And I continue to dig myself deeper and deeper into this hole. And I realized then, on top of it, I have this really bad skiing accident. Now talk about a whole hot mess of problems. Now I'm in rehab. I've got this brace up to my thigh. And my dad is like, we keep getting offered to partner up with other restaurant groups. Like, and thank God we own the land. And he said, like, why don't you just do it? And I was like, I cannot, like, Dad, you don't understand. Like, I'm like the girl, right? Who said she was going to do all this stuff and did it. I can't now, like, oh, I have a skiing accident and I'm getting divorced. And I'm like, even if it's a better deal for me to partner up with a restaurant, I can't do it. Like, that's humiliating. Well, guess what? I had to do that. Now, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, but that took about 20 years for that to be the best thing. And so I think now, because for so long I had so many people kind of outing me, like, oh, this girl isn't so great, look at all that I finally was like, dude, I'm going to tell the story, so at least you can come get it right here. And the pancake fail was like, I don't even understand. And my daughter said to me, she's like, how could you even mess that up like so badly? School for 2 summers in France on top of it. But I always say to my friends, party of 1,000, no problem. Find my way to a paper bag, absolutely damn impossible. So I think you save yourself a lot of stress and anxiety if you just kind of dust it off and are like, whatever, next. Okay. Because you're going to have a lot more of them and you're going to be a lot less stressed out trying to always cover it up. I was most stressed out when I was trying to pretend that everything was perfect. That's when my God, my anxiety was through the ceiling.
I mean, I think, obviously, like you're turning glass and you're remolding it, even if it's broken. So your glass is always half full, even though if the glass is broken, which is definitely a phenomenal trait for you to have. And I want you to kind of talk about like in your downtime, right? I think I read it somewhere between 10:45 and 11:15. You're planning your blowout party. So I want you to kind of dive into these party things that you're creating, because you're not just creating standard parties, right?
No.
You created parties for like Snoop Dogg and some other well-known people. So I want you to kind of talk about first, let's start with your party. What the hell kind of party are you planning on a day-to-day basis at that time frame every single day?
Well, the thing is that it's a little bit tongue in cheek. Of course, it's not like necessarily that, but you get it. I think that the concept is that I'm always literally planning for my own event, which I do them. It's one of those things. I'm so passionate about events and I'm so passionate about creativity, and I'm beyond competitive. So I'm always trying to outdo myself or outdo what I see or riff off of something like, oh, that's a great idea, but it'd be even better if, And so one of the things that a lot of times with clients, you can only push the envelope so far to a certain extent, right? I mean, I can say, hey, let's do this. And they might let me go pretty far, but sometimes I don't even want to push myself so far for a client if they're paying me for it, right? Like, it's like, this is going to kind of get messed up. I want it to get messed up on my dime. So what I started doing was playing with themes. And so, like, for example, I had this one giant party it was called the Four Seasons. And it was like, it's more than just a hotel. So I did a riff off of the Four Seasons logo, the real Four Seasons hotel logo. And then I put, it's more than just a hotel. So everybody's like, wait, huh? And then everybody came to this warehouse in like bad area of downtown LA. And when I mean bad, and this is like CEOs of hardcore companies. And this is like my gardener. I mean, it couldn't have been, the disparity was insane, just because that's how I throw parties. I'm like, you never know who's going to like whom. I like these people, put them all in a mosh pit and see what happens. And so it was like these vignettes of the Four Seasons. So you literally would go through spring, and I had everything like hanging flowers that were spring flowers and bulbs and all this stuff. And like how you would do a spring cleaning. So it was all like clear and very modern, and you could get your makeup done in there as like a refresh. Like it was, out there. But then you'd have fall, and fall was every single thing I loved about fall, which I love pumpkins and gourds and Halloween and all that stuff. So it was massive. And like, I love Thanksgiving. So it was this massive Thanksgiving dinner of stuffing and cornucopias and like scarecrows on stilts and all this stuff. Like every single thing that I just personally loved was in those Four Seasons. So then what I really started to incorporate with my clients was, hey, what are your favorite things? And they light up. Like it could be their favorite color, it could be their favorite, or your husband's, or whoever you're throwing the party for. And it's like, listen, if you make fun of this guy for eating hot dogs and like that's all he eats, like let's just have the most amazing hot dog bar in the world with every single thing, just how he would have it. And let's have the waiters in his stained t-shirt. And because that's when joy shows up for people, right? When they go, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And the client is happy and they're so happy seeing the person they're planning it for happy. But it's just about digging into what makes you happy or what makes the client happy versus what you think you should do. That's kind of the overarching message of how I live my life is when I was doing what other people thought I should do, it was a hot mess. When I just started going, well, this is how I want it. And by the way, take it or leave it. No worries. You don't have to come, And then people be like, that was the greatest, and it's like, okay, I had a lot of very happy 75-year-old party goers who are my parents' friends. And my mom would just be like, oh, like, this is just, and they'd be like, that was the greatest. Like they sat on sexy Santa's lap or whatever, still have the photos up on their refrigerator. And these women are a lot older now.
I think like you're obviously like a personality, right? I mean, when you coming to the table, you're bringing everything that you are, and people know who you are right away. So I would think like part of your success, and I think you talked about it in your book as well, is like when you found your TV agent. And I want you to kind of talk about that journey, because obviously you could be crazy and screaming in the streets and you end up in jail, or you find a TV agent and they put you in front of the right people to market you in the right audience. So I want you to talk about that journey and how that helped you become who you are.
Well, that's key. So for example, I went to Georgetown and, at the time, now, things have changed so much, but when I went to Georgetown, it was kind of like, and I was in the business school. So you would, then go on to law school, or you would go to work for a management consulting firm, or, you go to work for Bear Stearns. Like there was this trajectory, right? And my rule for myself was, or maybe you would go into advertising. Okay. If you're in the marketing department, but my rule for myself was, I'm not going to apply for anything where I would have to be in a gray or navy blue suit, because to me, that would imply that I would have to then potentially wear that outfit every day. And I knew there's no way I could do it. So I was like, okay, listen, if I have to show up in the interview for that, then I'm not going to apply for it in the first place. It's not going to be a fit. Now, that was just my gut instinct. In reality, I think it tells a lot, right? I probably knew myself better than a lot of other people. But it goes to, no matter what, I wouldn't have stood out anyway in interviews with all these other kids from Georgetown for Bear Stearns or whatever, because my brain doesn't think that way. I'd be like, how could we piece this off and sell it off for a huge whereas, these other companies want like a model and a cookie cutter situation. And so when I finally found a TV agent who was like, hey, let's take your big mouth, which can get you into a lot of trouble, and let's just redirect it right over here. So instead of people being like, oh, I can't believe she said that, and like, this is inappropriate, to, oh my God, that girl is funny. Okay, good. And when you just slightly change the focus and get aligned with who wants to see you and who you feel best chatting with, right? And now it's so much easier because of social media. It's magic. But I want to really emphasize, this looks like I just woke up one day and said, oh, I'm going to just get this agent and it's all going to work out. No, you have to kiss a lot of frogs in the meantime, right? You have to get the wrong agent, and you have to go through all the wrong people and then be like, gosh, is it me? They can't book me. Is it because I'm lame? Maybe, but it might also be they're not the right fit. But it goes back to, if that's what you want to do, you just keep trying to figuring out a way to then find the right person and find the right thing. And then with me, I did pretty well with TV early on, but then I just was like, I want to do better. And guess what? That's when I decided I needed a better strategy, which was the celebrity client piece. And I was very resistant to that, because I was like, I should be known for being the best just because I am so good at this. And it was like, yeah, well, whatever, next. That train is leaving. Like, people, you're going to get in the magazines and get recognized and go to a whole new level if you simply have celebrity clients. And I was like, that's just wrong. And then finally one day I was just like, well, too damn bad, because I'm working too hard to just not try that. But then it was crazy to me. As soon as I had celebrity clients, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, sure, we'll take her on this show. Sure. Then it was like, oh, she wants to talk about her book. Sure, no problem. And I was just like, how? But sometimes you just have to get out of your own way, right? And sometimes you just have to say, I don't necessarily agree that because Hailey Bieber drinks a smoothie, my daughter now wants to convert to Erewhon and, the whole deal. It's like, you haven't tasted the smoothie. I never even heard you talk about Hailey Bieber before. Now you're freaking in love with Erewhon, Hailey Bieber, the smoothie. But that's how it is. So you just go, okay, I'm going to make my life easier. I'm going to stop swimming upstream all the time. And I'm going to do this. And it completely changed the trajectory of my business, of my life, everything, getting out of my own way. just accepting this is what the world wants to see. So give it to them.
So, I mean, I think that's a hell of a message, right? But I don't think that everyone can do it, or can everyone do it?
No, they absolutely can. So I know I don't know. I'm assuming you're saying like, oh, not everybody can have a celebrity client base. Not everybody can have. And so what I am saying here is why I said everybody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you change the definition of celebrity and you broaden it to person of influence, and I don't care if you have, and I've been in many small towns, I don't care if you have a population of 300 or a population of 10 million. We all know who the movers and shakers are, even in that 300. It's the mayor, it's the trust fund kid who's always drunk going from this bar to that bar. It's the farmers, whatever, that, had a scandal with getting married. I mean, there are influencers in every single market. And what you do is you just start, you don't go from here to Hailey Bieber, you go from here to the mayor. Then guess what? There's just a whole group of people who are always going to follow kind of what the mayor's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And or what the person on TV is doing. And then you just kind of lily pad it. So instead of going here to here, you go, I'm just going to hop, 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 hop. And guess what? I'm going to get across the creek, because you took these little incremental steps. And now with social media, to me, there's no excuse, right? If you try hard enough, you can watch free YouTube videos on how to increase your social media. You can partner up with influencers. Everybody, it's all an exchange, right? The influencer might want the product you have. They have 1 million followers. You don't, but they, want your boba, whatever it would be. And you just find the right match, and you just keep at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then before you know it, you can have the celebrity, the A-list, if that's what you want. Now, I'm not implying that is the business model for everybody, right? And there's a lot that comes with that. But if you change your mindset to, if Joe Blow says they eat at this restaurant, or this is the best lunch spot, people go, well, then start talking to Joe Blow. To what, so it is that easy if you broaden the definition. How about that?
So let me clarify that and redefine it. So if it was to be simple steps, first of all, you're saying to be in the right place, be in the right room. You could be the fly in the room, but you have to be in the room first and foremost, right?
Well, I'm going to pause you 1 second.
Done?
The first thing I'm going to say is, the first thing is you have to decide what it is you want.
Okay.
So, because before you're going to be the fly in the room, you got to decide what room you want to be in, right? You might want to be the fly in the massage room, just chilling out. Mm-hmm. Now, me, Miss Super Competitive, who was like, oh, everybody's a millionaire. I don't want to be a millionaire. I want to be a billionaire. Well, that changes the game, because guess what? I'm only going to live so long. I'm already this old. That's going to change how many rooms, how fast, how many flies I got to be. Do I, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the only thing is, I'm just going to tell everybody is first decide loosely where it is you want to go, where you think you want to go. So
okay.
Sorry.
So then let's go to step 2. So step 2 is being the fly in the room. And then step 3 is essentially finding other flies that have more flies following them.
Bingo.
Right? And then lastly, but not least, is the conversion, right? And that kind of connects to the title of your book. Like, why are you making these connections? And then are you monetizing these connections? And to your point about the time, I mean, it takes a hell of a lot of patience. And I want you to talk about the duration of time. I mean, somebody's hearing you right now, maybe for the first time, and they're like, oh my God, where has she been my whole damn life? She's exciting, she's powerful, she's impactful, and all these things. But in reality, like, how long you been on this journey?
Well, in reality, I feel like I'm 1,000 years old. I mean, I've had a lot of Botox, and that's the only reason that keeps me on podcasts like yours. So yeah, I've been in business, 30 something years. I mean, not counting the shrinky dink time. So but here's the thing, I look at it, I'm a big gardener and composter and all that, and I love it. And here's, if I were hungry, right? I wouldn't just plant avocado trees, because avocado trees notoriously take a long time to mature. Okay. It used to be it's 7 years before you plant the tree, you're going to get an avocado, blah, 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 blah. Now they're probably some kind of super engineered, whatever, they can get them faster. But let's stick with that, is that this is something that's going to take a while. Well, you're going to die before you get anything and you're not going to be able to eat, right? So then, but then let's go, okay, well, what if we plant radishes? Well, radishes are something that just pop right up, right? It doesn't take a radish very long to mature. So guess what? You plant your avocado tree, but you don't hope that it's going to keep you fed, but you plant some radishes, that's going to keep you going for a while. Because guess what? You just keep tossing those seeds in the ground. It's easy, low-hanging fruit, etc. But then in the meantime, you do pumpkins, right? Pumpkins take a few months, but then guess what? You're going to get these big squash. You're going to, so you've got 3 different levels. So the point is that you say, okay, what is it that I want? Oh, okay, great. I want these celebrity clients and I want this and I want that. Okay. So then you plant three levels of things to sustain you. You say, what can I do right now? Right now, I can get Joe Blow, who is down the street and who is, probably will hire me if I give him my product for free, right? Then you say, okay, maybe Joe Blow's boss, it's going to be a little bit more of a stretch, right? Do you see where I'm headed? Like you layer it. So you're getting a few quick hits. You're getting some cash in the bank. You're getting maybe some extra followers and likes, and you're perfecting your videos on social media. But then all the while, you're still building up to that avocado tree. And by the time it shows up, then you're fed for life, right? Because then now you got this big, impressive, amazing tree, but you're really doing all 3 things at the same time. And that's how you have to think of it. Otherwise, you'll go nuts. I mean, I guess there's some people who can just plan these very far out projects and be fine just waiting for the payoff in 5 years. I mean, I'm not one of them. I need some little hits. I mean, I need put an ad out 5 seconds later. Hi, it might be the wrong client, but you went fishing and you got a nibble. I need some nibbles to keep me enthusiastic. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, this is horrible.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously need the dopamine hits, right? And I think you made a hell of an analogy about planting the 3 different types of trees, and based upon when you can yield whatever they're going to earn for you. So I think to the listeners listening, if you didn't really catch that, stop listening right now and record this shit back and play 3 or 4 times to hear what she's saying, because it makes perfect sense. I mean, you're going to have to layer and layer and layer. So when that actual explosion happens, think about it from a content standpoint. If you're building all this content and then you have the long-term content, and once the long-term content blows up, all your other content is going to do what with that content? They're all going to rise together.
Well, for example, right. And like, for example, with you, okay, so let's say you're doing a podcast, right? And from, let's say, the time you did your first podcast, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of time, money, resources, lighting, equipment, getting it right, all that stuff. But let's say you finally get the one amazing podcast done. Let's call that the avocado tree, right? But what you can do in the meantime is you can parse that out, right? You can take a couple quotes from somebody that you interviewed, post it on Instagram, and have that be your Instagram stories for a month, all these little things teasing it, right? That will just get you some quick hits. So in the meantime, on Instagram, people are saying oh, he interviewed that person. That's kind of cool. I see what he's doing. You get on the radar, right? And then that feeds more podcasts for you down the road, but you're not waiting for the podcast right now to pay your mortgage. You're just going, okay, this is what I ultimately want. Now, what can I do? Maybe you're going to be a guest on podcasts. Like you just look at it as you don't put all your eggs in one basket, and you have multiple things going. And so let's say if you have, a cupcake business, well, yeah, you ultimately might want to get into Whole Foods, right? Well, that's good. Okay, pursue that, develop those relationships. Probably going to take a while. But in the meantime, what if you deliver cupcakes to your daughter's friend who happens to have 10,000 followers? She's a little brat, but guess what? She'll, and that's an easy hit. And then you donate them to her and her little posse. And you see what I'm saying? You have some easy stuff that leads you to the next thing. All the while, you hope you never have to deal with this little pipsqueak. But right now, you're going to deal with her in order to get to Whole Foods.
I think it's phenomenal. And I think you brought up quotes. So I want to kind of quote one of your favorite quotes, which is the irony is obviously I don't think you sleep, right? Who sleeps, right? So I want you to talk about the do you sleep quote. And I think I found that on your Facebook page. Why do you hold on to that quote so much?
Because I think it's for a couple reasons. First of all, anybody that knows me knows I love to sleep so much. Like, and I love my bed. It's just like snuggly and amazing. And I think that we all need the best beds because not the most expensive, but just because that's like where you recharge, right? And I think naps and sleep are underrated. Now, do I buzz at a very high rate when I'm not sleeping? Yes. Do I accomplish more than, most people on the planet during my waking time? Absolutely. But I think it's important to realize that, like somebody like me, I'm on or I'm off. Like when now it's time to sleep, I am doing my brain waves, meditation to go to sleep. I am maximizing my sleep. I'm putting like a thought in my mind of like a problem I want to work out while I'm sleeping. It's all still kind of efficient, and I like that because I think if somebody can say that about an entrepreneur, like, isn't that who you'd want to do business with, right? Like, wouldn't I want to be on a podcast with somebody like you because you're high energy? But then guess what? I know somehow in my gut that you're going to be the guy that's going to promote the podcast. And you're going to be the guy that's going to always be looking for new people to interview. You just go, that's the person I kind of want to be around. Same thing with the cupcake person. You want to be somebody they go to France to try the new chocolate. They're in Mexico figuring this out. Do they like this better? What about this packaging? That person's in the game. And they are not going to stop. Like, they are not fueled by likes necessarily or retweets. They're fueled by, they are so passionate about what they're doing. And that just attracts people who are like, that's really cool. I have no interest in cupcakes, but I just love that they are so damn excited about it.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you brought up cupcakes a couple of different times because I remember seeing a video. I think it was a Fox News video, and it was an interview, and you was talking about Mother's Day gifts, and you was talking about, well, why not take the cupcakes and make a cupcake bouquet or a bouquet? And you did all these different variables. So I want you to kind of to talk about that to a certain extent. So you're developing these parties, and again, we're talking about grandiose parties, but you're not thinking about laying out cupcakes. You're not thinking about a standard cake. You're not thinking about standard decoration. Like, give us like a verbal to kind of imagine visual of an example of what one of your parties looks like.
Sure. Well, first of all, it starts with asking a million questions. And I mean, when I say a million questions, I mean, it is a million questions. And I can afford to do that because we have set our minimum at a certain point because a lot of times you can ask a million questions, but if you're like cost per party or your cost per unit of whatever it is you're selling, you can't do that, right? You can't give it that amount of time. So for us, we're pre-qualifying people ahead of time. But then once we're like in the sandbox, I'm asking so many questions. The reason I'm asking so many questions is because I write everything down and I want to see the person's face. I want to see how they react. If they're like, yeah, that sounds good. And they're kind of shrugging their shoulder and kind of looking away. I know they're not as excited as something else I said about like, oh, what about like tacos, like on the spit with blah, 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 made of, and then something changes. So I'm reading cues that are verbal. I'm reading cues that are nonverbal. I want very much I'm after the vein, right? Like the vein in a mountain that's like taking me to the gold I want to hit something that tells me, now I've got it. Now I know what makes this person happy. Because most of the time it is not what they say. They're going to say, oh yeah, I want to do this beautiful party and whatever. And well, they don't. They want to have a freaking great time and celebrate the fact that they took their company public and rage, but you got to get to the root of what is it that they want. And that one of the key things with our events is that, first of all, I layer everything so that I want you to walk in and I don't want you to be able to take the whole party in.
Mm.
Even if you stood there for 15 minutes, I don't want you to be able to take it in. And what I mean by that is I want layered experiences. I want you to turn the corner and be like, I did not expect to see that. Wow. Okay. And then halfway through the party, something changes, or like a pop-up little band happens for a certain amount of time, or, you know, like we had one where we had like ice sculpture carvers that in the middle of the party, like it had been, you know, people were buzzed by this point, they'd eaten and from the stations, and then we carved this giant ice sculpture, these guys all with chainsaws, and to this like rock music. And people were like, I've never even seen a chainsaw live, except like when the neighbor had to chop down a tree because it fell in the street. And these people like have chainsaws at a party and they're covered in goggles and whatever, and you don't even know what they're gonna make, right? I want people to be like, what? And so many times those what moments are not $1 million. Like you can create them. We've done stuff where we just had, you know, we did this thing, we didn't have a huge budget. It was for a country club, and I was trying to just help out. And we did this theme, and it was Mad Men, and we rented couches and stuff and used some of the couches from the place. And then we got TV trays. So everybody with these very fancy people with a net worth of like $50 gazillion are sitting there on these couches with TV trays, looking at this like painted set of Mad Men, you know? They were on fire because nobody has had a TV tray since their grandmother, right? Like, yeah. And so then you got the food, and it was like food from that era, and it was like, and you know, what's that? Not Waldorf salad, it's the ambrosia salad, you know, with the marshmallows. And these are also people haven't eaten a carb since 1975, and here they've got TV trays of ambrosia salad and all this stuff. But that wasn't expensive, right? To get fold up trays, do that, and go through the buffet with this mounds of, you know, kind of 1950s food. Like, but everybody loved it. And it's just like, think what's gonna make them happy, and what's gonna make them go, what the heck? You know, like,
yeah. I totally hear it. I mean, what I'm hearing from you, if I could put you as a Renaissance artist, you're an expressionist with avant-garde traits, right?
Right.
And so you're like bringing art that's kind of like impactful, but it's more meaningful. And until people actually embrace it, they're not going to know what the hell they're seeing and comprehending until after the fact. So I definitely appreciate that 100%.
And a lot of times I have to go in knowing that 90% of the people are never going to get all the layers of impact, right? The layers of impact are so much for me and for my client. Like, my client is the kind of usually in on the secret sauce, right? The client knows why their chainsaws and ice, and, you know, might have come from a transformative thing that they're through in their marriage. And you know, it makes sense to us, and other people see it as cool, and some of the very good friends might get it. But the idea is that you get people thinking, so they realize, like, I don't even know what's going on, but I love the vibe. And that's what we're trying to do, just with our businesses or events. If that's your business, you're trying to create this buzz that makes everybody feel good in your little universe for as long as they're in your universe. Then they go back to their stuff in their lives, and okay, but for that 4-hour period, they were in the bubble with you.
I think it's wonderful. And I mean, just hearing you speak, you could tell that not only are you educated, but you're highly educated in like psychology to a certain extent, right?
Yeah,
so I want to kind of go back to when you were, I think it was 13 or 14, when you wrote your first book. And I want to talk about that book and what other books from then until now have helped you to become who you are.
So first of all, I was like, you know, I was a freshman in high school, and, you know, there's all these very popular, beautiful girls and the whole thing. And I was just always like business. And I babysat for this woman who had a printing business and stuff. And I just admired her so much. I admired her actually for many reasons. One is she was like 6'2" and her husband was like 5'5", you know, and here you are 13 years old. And you're like, my God, she never seems to be embarrassed. She always seems to be. That amazed me. The fact that she was this amazing businesswoman, but really nice to me always with the babysitting. I was just kind of fascinated, right? So I loved wrapping packages. And of course, being who I am, I was like, well, I can wrap the most amazing packages. So I'm not just going to wrap packages. I'm going to write a book about how to wrap all the ways you can wrap packages, you know, and just take it to the nth degree. And then I asked this woman, I said, oh, you know, I want to write this book. And she said, oh, I'll bind it for you if you do it.
Nice.
And then, by the way, I hadn't written it, but then I did part of it at my dad's office. And so I like had my aunt help me type it. Like it was all these different players came together. And then I remember she helped me bind it. And I was so proud. Now, of course, the other kids in my class were like, oh my God, this girl's the biggest weirdo ever. But the parents, on the other hand, were buying that thing like hot because they were like, I don't know who this girl, but this girl does not seem like she's going to be headed down a bad path if she's spending all her time, you know, writing gift wrapping books. So it was this weird kind of thing. But I've always loved books and I've always loved physical stuff. And I've always loved kind of like documenting things, you know? And so then and it was a great humbling experience too, because then I went to our local bookstore and I asked them if they would carry it, and they did. And it was like, you know, you got to have guts when you do stuff like that. And those are lessons that kind of I've taken with me. And then the only reason I wrote, but are you making any money, was because I did this free to get a free pass for industry convention. You had to teach a class. So I taught this class on my little job costing principle. And I did it for like an hour. And then I was heading out to have my martinis. And these girls were asking me all these questions. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not the money guru. Like I'm the guru who I've already spent like half the deposit I got from my client at Neiman Marcus. But they were like, but we need, like, you're the only one answering the question. So it's like, okay, fine. So I'm going to document my process. But it helps you, great. If not, peace out. I didn't think it was that great to start with, right? But I put 1,000% into it. Now, ironically, I wrote a chapter getting edited now of another book on so I'm part of another book on leadership that comes out in the middle of August. And it's hilarious to me that I'm part of a book on leadership because I do well leading, like with my ideas, but I always tie management into leadership. And that is one of my absolute biggest failures in life, is my just inability to like do something well that it seems like so many people can do. Yet I guess that's probably part of why they want me as part of the book, because I'm somebody who's not naturally good at it, who's made myself survive in it. So, but another book that changed my life and that I tell every entrepreneur you must read is E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. I mean, you must read it. It just, because entrepreneurs, we have the same problem all the time. We keep going back to being the technician, baking the pies, doing all these things. Instead, we have to be working on our businesses, not just in it. And that, if I could say one thing, you've got to work on it. Like, what's the strategy? How are the avocado trees doing? Not just what I can do right this second, what's in front of me, the ringing phone or the contract that's got to go out.
So let's spin off of that. Let's peel back some onions, right? And I think another one of your catchphrases is I'm very wound up. So let's say a listener is very wound up. They're relating to you right now. What words of wisdom would you want them to walk away from this episode to help them to continue to be successful and to move forward up that ladder?
Okay, so I would say I'm very used to very wound up people. I'm going to generalize, but one of the things with us very wound up people is we can be very wound up and then we don't necessarily follow up, right? So one thing that has massively helped me, because I got diagnosed with ADHD very late in life. So I had to come up with all these workarounds before I even knew that I had ADHD. Now, of course, it's much easier. So if you're wound up and you're not exactly sure why, or the first thing is I would I would understand how you function during the day, right? Because I know very well that high of, oh my gosh, I want to do this. This is great. This girl is so amazing,
Yes.
blah, 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 right? But then I would say, okay, stop when you pause the podcast or at the end of the podcast, do not let yourself go do something else. You stop and for 15 minutes, you write all of the things that you learned in the podcast, just free form, learn this, blah, 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 blah. And then distill it down to like 3 key things that you think would have the biggest return on investment for you. Like, wow, if I did, and then rank them, literally spend a minute and say, yeah, that's going to be cool. And I would love that, but this is going to bring in the money or whatever it is I need, want to focus on most. And then do one thing and take one habit and commit to that one habit, whether it's like I'm listening to, or I love a book called Brian Buffini, written 1 billion years ago, called Oh, by the Way. And it's very simple. It's written for real estate agents. And he makes his agents write 10 handwritten cards. And I know people are going to say, why would I do that when I can send an email? Because it's different discipline. 10 handwritten cards with like, oh, here's an article I thought you'd love, blah, blah, blah. And you put, oh, by the way, if you're thinking of buying or selling your home, I hope you'll call me. But you do it. So it's like, pick one thing from this podcast, right? Like pick one piece of advice. Maybe it's track your time. Maybe it's, and commit to doing that one piece and figure out what part of the day is could you most accomplish that? Because most people, unless it's got cocaine or something that's got them wound up, do have a lull, right? So if you want to have a strategic, you need to create a strategic plan. You're totally motivated to create a strategic plan. Well, when you naturally are winding down, like for me, I take baths intentionally to wind down. And sometimes because I make myself a captive audience, because sometimes I need to go through a lot of emails. And guess what I say to myself, girl, you're not getting out of the bath till the emails are done. And I've been in there for 3 hours. But it is what it is. That helps me focus, and I can't really, finish. So whatever the wound up person needs to do, maybe they go for a hike and dictate the notes on an app. Like just try something so you get out of your own way that's natural and simple. You dictate it on an app, you send it off, you get transcription that's not perfect, but it's something, So that's what I would say is the wound up person's got to just then write it all out, distill it down to 3, take it to 1, and then just commit to that 1 and really commit to just nailing it for 30 days. I'm going to listen to a podcast on writing a strategic plan. I'm going to listen to a YouTube video. I'm going to Google how to do it, whatever it is. And then you get the dopamine hit because you start going, wow, I pulled this off. Because wound up people can be hard on themselves, and with good reason, but
yeah. But I mean, to your point, if you're listening right now, like I warned you in the beginning, your heart rate should be up. Like I'm animated right now. I'm trying not to flip over my damn desk right now because I'm with you right now, right?
Yeah,
someone's listening. I want them to get in direct contact with you if that's something that you want. So how do they reach out to you? Where do you want to send them? What webpage? Talk about your book. How do they get access?
Yeah. So of course I want you to go to Amazon and buy the book, but are you making any money? Because then guess what? I can send the other 2 kids to college. That would be amazing. But if you don't want to spend any money, you're like, I don't know about this girl. I want to like tiptoe around it a bit. Super easy thing. You can go to our YouTube channel, The Profit Goddess, and got business stuff. You can go to our Instagram if you want to see party, like creative stuff. That's at The Party Goddess. Super easy. And then we have like a little totally free video series, 4 parts that walks you through kind of some of the principles in my book with real action items. And you can do that at mini.theprofitgoddess.com. And you just like log on and you will know very fast. You'll be like, oh my God, she drives me insane. And that's okay. I drive many people insane. Or you'll be like, wow, okay, that's cool. I could do that. And it's manageable.
Very cool. Very cool. So I want to ask you one of my bonus questions, right? And this is for you. I'm trying to imagine, considering that you've had opportunities to meet highly successful people, celebrities, and everything else. But if you have a 24-hour window, and you could spend that 24-hour window with anyone, dead or alive, uninterrupted, for that 24 hours, who would it be and why?
Mother Teresa.
I
And
didn't see that shit coming.
what?
I did not see that shit coming.
Here's why.
Hmm.
Because she was as passionate as you and I are. She had to be, right? Nobody can serve for your entire life like she did. And I would want to know, think about all the times she failed and all the times she had to doubt herself and doubt her surroundings and was uncomfortable. Like, how do you blow through all those things? You're hungry and you still keep going. And oh, by the way, it's not really for your own personal gain. It's for other people, right? So I think if you could tap into her focus and her drive and her commitment and you would have the secrets to being an amazing person, an amazing friend, an amazing business person, right? Because you'd have discipline, you'd have empathy for your kids, you would have all these skills about you'd clearly be able to read a huge crowd. What does this one need versus this one? How can you really help? How can you make an impact? Because it would be like boiling the ocean, right? With her, there's endless people that just need so much. Yet she was able to do that and just kept coming and just kept showing up. And I have a hard time just showing up even with the cappuccino and with, lunch delivered from DoorDash and with, aromatherapy to keep me motivated. And yet this woman had none of that. And yet I bet had a very, very, very satisfied life and probably a lot more satisfied than a lot of the rest of us. And I think sometimes we think it's all about something that we have to attain that is hard, or that, her stuff is hard, but that costs something. But I do think there's so much pleasure in being a good friend, or gardening and cutting your roses and giving them to somebody who you just made their day. So that's why I would say her.
I think it's definitely interesting. Like I said, I was thinking you was probably gonna say, I was gonna ask you like could it be Coco? And I was like, is Coco possibly like one of her pet animals? I wasn't sure who Coco was, but I was like, maybe
Coco's my daughter. Coco's my daughter.
Okay, I was like, maybe she'll say Coco, but okay, not Coco.
Oh no, I spent plenty of time with Coco. I mean, there are a lot of other, like I'd love to spend I just watched this Mary Tyler Moore documentary. I would love. I mean, that you want to talk about a complex woman?
Yeah.
Talk about somebody who looked like, in those days she had it all perfect and then struggled with alcoholism. I'm very fascinated with people who have public failures and overcome them, because to me, it is so hard to overcome things when you're being down on yourself. But then when it's public, that adds a whole other layer. And yeah, so she's another one. I mean, of course, like the obvious Richard Branson, or Steve Jobs, or, so different people for different reasons. But that's a great question, because like I said, you're like, what in the world? That's what my hairdresser would say. Always keep you like, what? Who are you, Miss Purple Eyelashes and whatever? And I'll be like, yes, I'd like to be a Carmelite nut. Because I have no hope, probably, but.
So let's spin that, right? I mean, obviously you've had a lot of damn achievements, right? I mean, you spoke on Fox, MTV, HDTV, ABC, I mean, the alphabet.
Yeah.
Right? You're a Forbes counselor, all these different things.
Right.
Really, what is the most significant achievement to date for you?
My book, for sure. But are you making money? Because talk about being wound up, and it was such a discipline for me. It was such discipline. It was such a labor of love. And I wanted to quit so many times, and it was hard. And it was really hard to explain things that I thought were obvious, and then write a chapter or something on it and have somebody be like, I'm totally lost. And then you got to redo it again. So it was, but for me to have just to keep getting out of bed and just keep doing it and hitting the deadline and seeing it through, when so many people, talk about doing that. And I was like, okay, well, dude, I did that. So that, I think that's huge for me.
Very cool. I'm just recapping this entire episode. I think you dropped so many nuggets and so much like it's overwhelming, but at the same
Yeah,
time, it's a sense of like serenity too, right? I mean, obviously
yes.
you've done it, you're doing it, you're living it. I think your explanation of the avocado tree and the pumpkins is something that if that does not resonate with every single listener on this podcast, I'm firing y'all from listening anymore. Period. Move on, right? So
Yeah,
ideally, like going into the closing of this episode, I like to give whoever I'm interviewing an opportunity to become the host of the Boss Cage
yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
My show is now your show. I'm now your guest. Do you have any
Love it.
questions for me?
Yeah, I have tons of questions. Why are you passionate? Like, well, why are you in purple and you've got a lot of purple branding? And why are you passionate? Like, I just know so much how much goes into this stuff and the follow up and everything else that like what keeps you going with it. And please don't give like an obvious answer.
No,
Give
I
some
mean,
maybe other answer.
I don't think obvious is in our DNA, right? I mean, starting off with like the colors. For example, for me, like purple is like a color that is significant for multiple different reasons. On one end, it's royalty, right? On the other end, it's wisdom and passion, and kind of going back everything that I've been through in my life. It was the only color that I can kind of stand here and go toe to toe with someone of your caliber and understand and comprehend and have this conversation in any other color. No other color would put that representation of
Right.
who I'm becoming in that
Yeah.
space. And also, in addition to that color, you know, like it's a binary color, right? You have red and you have blue, which is usually associated to male and female. So the
Great.
combination of both colors,
Yeah.
it's
It's
unisex,
great.
right? So it's not male or female. It's business. It's entrepreneur. It's creating a legacy.
Great question I asked. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. I mean that takes care of that, right?
Yeah.
And why am I so passionate about what I'm doing? It's just kind of like when I think everyone comes to a point in their life, whether it's midlife crisis, whether somebody dies at a young age, or where you almost die yourself, then you wake up in this moment of, okay, what is your purpose?
Yeah.
So when I had my stroke and I woke up and I was like, okay, I'm alive. Like, what is my purpose? And it took me about 18 months to figure out what my purpose was, and I still wasn't sure. But now looking back that I've been doing this for 3 years, not only is my purpose and my passion and my vision and everything that I always wanted all into one thing. So that's why I dedicate so much time and effort to brand everything, wear my brand, communicate, connect, and keep talking with people on your caliber and keep growing and growing and growing.
Okay, so one more quick one before you give me the hook. What's one thing that I can or anybody listening could do for you or put you in touch with or help with or move the needle with that like you're struggling with, or that you not necessarily in a bad way struggling with, maybe just haven't had time, or like that you want to accomplish in any aspect of your life and you're just like, it's just that's hard for me.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great question, and it puts me on the spot to select the right one, right? And
or you give me a few.
Yeah, but I mean, I think what you said earlier on definitely resonates with all podcasts, all media. It's a matter of finding the right outlet, which you just need to shift just a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would think, based upon your journey, following your foot tracks, probably making a connection with someone that's in the TV space would probably be very interesting.
Good. Okay. What kind of TV? Like an agent kind of person, like a publicist, or like a producer kind of contact, or?
I think probably more so like an agent, because I mean, what I'm seeing is you and I, if we were to combine together to be one person, we're Howard Stern, right?
Yeah, 100%.
100%. So, I mean, what does that look like? Obviously, each of us have our own target audience. We communicate well. We have our own brands. So there's obviously an audience out there just from my podcast by itself. But what would that podcast look like if I took that on the television spectrum? And how many people can I communicate with?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it almost has like a little bit of a Donnie Deutsch kind of meets Howard Stern meets, but it doesn't exist. That I know for sure. Yeah. Okay. I love that. Okay. So we all need to, one thing we can all do is see that for you, even if we don't have a contact for you. Everybody in the audience can like envision you doing that and make their little mental vision board to keep that going forward, me included. So I love it. I
Well,
love
I
it.
definitely appreciate you. I think not only did you bring a ball of fire and energy to the end of my day for like my last episode for today, but I think you're so inspiring. And again, you're so raw. And I think that's why people are attracted to you and drawn to you for as long as you've been in the game.
Thank you. Well, it's so sweet. Well, and I really appreciate everybody taking the time to listen, because I know everybody's got a billion things to do, but we've all got to just keep supporting the good stuff like this, that's giving people ideas and giving them hope, and just reminding them that we all have, whether it's a stroke or a business failure or bankruptcy or whatever, we all have all those things. We may not talk about them on the podcast, but we all have all those things. So just keep putting your foot in front of the other. Get up out of bed.
Yeah, that's it. Like every day you wake up, make that day count. That's just what I look at.
Exactly.
Well, from the Boss Uncaged podcast to the party boss herself, we definitely appreciate you. Thanks for being on our show today. And we're definitely going to follow you. And every time we see you, our heart rate will elevate for sure.
I love it. Nothing better than rising instead of plummeting, right?
Yes. Appreciate it. S.A. Grant, over and out.